Right then, folks, it's Friday, and unfortunately, we've got to sit down and talk through what was a bit of a car crash for Celtic last night. Fibione against Ajax in the Como Cup. It's just a preseason tournament, but even saying that out loud still stings a bit. I'm honestly trying to crack a smile here, but that was a rough watch from start to finish. Let's not sugarcoat it. There were flashes moments of encouragement early on, but as the game wore on, we were totally exposed, and not just by a good team, but by the reality of where this Celtic squad stands right now. It felt like a proper Jekyll and Hyde performance. First half we saw glimpses of the football Brendan Rodgers is trying to put in place. You could see the shape, the intention, the attempts to play through Ajax's press. But once we hit the 30-minute mark, it all started to unravel, and the second half in particular showed a real gulf in quality. It's frustrating because when you start off with composure and control like we did, you expect to build on that. Instead, we folded. And that's not what you want to see even in preseason. Now I know what folk will say, it's only preseason, results don't matter. And to an extent that's true. You don't win trophies in July, but what you do get from these matches is insight. And last night gave us a big flashing warning light that there are serious issues still needing addressed. The squad's lacking in depth, it's lacking in quality in key areas, and we're only a few weeks out from our Champions League qualifier. That's the context here. That's why this defeat isn't just a blip to be brushed off. Brendan Rodgers himself didn't seem to surprise after the match. He mentioned the team's pressing and passing, and to be fair, we did start well. That fourth-minute effort from Young that smashed the bar, if that goes in, who knows how the night plays out, but it didn't, and instead of kicking on, we gradually faded. Ajax figured us out, tightened things up, and by the time the second half rolled around, it was one-way traffic. Let's talk line-up for a second. Schmeichel in goals, then a backline of Ralston, Murray, Scales, and Tierney. Midfield was McGregor, Negrin, and had it. Up front, Young, Maeda, and Ida. Now straight off the bat, a few positives. Dane Murray once again looked solid. He's not just making up the numbers anymore. If he keeps this level up, there's no reason he can't be in the squad come opening day. Schmeichel deserves a bit of credit. He made some decent stops and wasn't helped by the defenders in front of him. You can't put 5 past the keeper and say he was the issue, not last night. Ralston, though, it was a tough one for him. Defensively, he looked off it. He got turned inside out more than once, and Ajax found loads of space down his flank. Wendell and Morrow were constantly exploiting that side. Liam Scales had a proper battle with Brobby. First half you could maybe say it was even, but second half Brobby had him on strings. The guy's physical, quick, sharp, and you could see the difference between a decent striker and a Topelvel one. That's what a team like Ajax brings. And that's what Celtic still lack. Then there's Benji. Negrin. For me, the standout, absolutely everywhere. I'd love to see the running stats because he was covering every blade of grass. Strong on the ball, creative, didn't shy away from a challenge. He looks like he could be a key player domestically. And more than that, I think he'll unlock had it this season. Give Rio the freedom to push on and be the player we all know he can be. It's only been a few appearances for Negrin, but the early signs are very, very promising. Callum McGregor was steady as always, nothing flashy, but you know what you get with Cal. Young and Maeda, though, were a bit inconsistent. Young, to his credit, scored a cracking goal. The kind of composed finish he probably wouldn't have managed this time last year. That tells me he's improving. He's still raw and not a guaranteed starter, but there's development there. Maeda as ever ran himself into the ground, but didn't really offer that cutting edge. Then there's Ida, and honestly he's a puzzle, a real enigma. Ida did a few things well. He held the ball up under pressure, managed to lay it off here and there, but there were also moments that just made you scratch your head. One in particular, ball comes into him and he passes it straight out the park. No pressure, no one near him, just a poor touch and a worse decision. You can't have that, not if you're hoping to lead the line at Celtic. It's that kind of inconsistency that'll cost us. And when you look across at Ajax and you see Brobby, a player who cost them around £15 million, now worth double that with Premier League interest, you see the difference real quality makes. We're not going to sign a player like that, but surely we can aim higher than what we've got at the moment. There's a serious conversation to be had about recruitment. We paid around £11 million for Ida, and you're sitting there thinking, is he even an £8 million player? We've been shopping in the bargain bins too long. Rodgers spoke about ambition after the match, and that's exactly the point. If we want to compete on the European stage, even just to get out of the Champions League qualifiers, we need to stop penny pinching. We need to be looking at players in the 6 to 10 million bracket minimum. Not every signing needs to be a blockbuster, but we've got to start showing some real intent. Because make no mistake, the second half last night showed the gap. Ajax, who go straight into the Champions League, look streets ahead. Celtic, who still have to qualify, looked miles off. And we're running out of time. 3.5 weeks isn't long in football. The transfer window might be open, but we're dragging our heels. And look, maybe this defeat is a blessing in disguise, as some fans said online after the match. Better to get slapped in preseason than in a qualifier. Maybe this is the wake-up call the board needs. But it's frustrating that we always seem to need a wake-up call. Every window follows the same pattern. We wait, we hesitate, and then we scramble at the last minute. Where's the planning? Where's the urgency? We saw it again last night. 30 minutes of good football and then collapse. It wasn't just fitness. It was structure. It was mentality. It was depth. Once Ajax got on top, we had nothing to turn to. The subs didn't change the game. The shape got messy and we were chasing shadows. That's why these preseason games matter, not for trophies or results, but for the hard truths they reveal. And one of those truths is that Celtic, as things stand, are not ready for the Champions League. Not with this squad, not with this level of quality. We're relying on too many players who aren't ready to be starters. Yang's got potential, sure. But right now he's not the guy to carry your attack. Tilio might be on the way out. Maeda is limited in certain aspects, and Forrest, bless him, is nearing the twilight of his career. We can't go into a season with that being our only wide options. And the striker situation still unresolved. Kyogo's departure left a massive hole and we haven't filled it, not even close. Rodgers is clearly frustrated, and you can see it in how he talks about recruitment. The club's scouting team are bringing names to the table, but if they're not what Rodgers wants, it's back to square one. That process is fine in theory, but if we're not prepared to pay what players are worth, it breaks down very quickly. We can laugh and joke about Celtic offering 20% of a player's actual value. But deep down we know there's truth in it. We've seen it play out time and again. Negotiations stall, clubs walk away, and we're left scrambling. That's not good enough. Not if we want to compete. Not if we want to keep progressing. Right, so picking up where we left off, Celtic's transfer strategy, or lack thereof, is something that's been brewing for a long time, and last night's result against Ajax just poured fuel on the fire. You don't lose Fibion in a preseason game and brush it off if you're a club with real ambition. Not when you've had all summer to get your house in order. Not when you're staring down the barrel of a Champions League qualifier in a few weeks and half your squad still looks like it's in preseason trial mode. It's not just about bringing bodies in, it's about bringing quality in. And right now it doesn't feel like that's happening. Brendan Rodgers made it pretty clear in his post-match comments. He praised the effort of the current squad, said they're working hard, buying into the system, all that good stuff. But then he added that if Celtic want to progress, and that's the key word here, progress, then new signings with real quality are essential, and you can feel the subtext. In what he's saying, it's not just that the squad needs help. It's that Rodgers isn't being backed the way he should be. The structure behind recruitment at Celtic is in theory quite straightforward. The scouting and analytics team identifies players around the world who they believe are both good enough and affordable. They present a list of options to the manager. If Rodgers gives the green light, the club then goes and tries to sign the player. If he says no, they go back to the drawing board. Simple process. But here's the issue. How many players have made it to the green light stage this summer and actually been signed? Because from the outside it doesn't look like many, Negrin sure. And maybe one or two others, but that's not good enough when you've had the whole summer window to work with. And that's where the frustration comes in, because it's not like Celtic are broke, far from it. There's money in the bank, we all know it. The club's finances are healthy. We've sold big players in recent windows, we've had Champions League money, and we've kept the wage bill under control. So why is it always a case of dragging out deals, haggling over pennies, and waiting until the 11th hour? Supporters see it. Brendan Rodgers clearly sees it, and the players probably feel it too. There's nothing more demoralizing than knowing you're heading into a European campaign, and the squad still isn't complete. There's no striker you can trust to score goals consistently at that level. The wings are threadbare. And we're talking about guys like James Forrest, who's been a loyal servant, but is no longer in his prime, potentially starting in the Champions League. And look, no disrespect to Forrest, the guy's a club legend, but if we're relying on him to dig us out of a European tie, something's gone badly wrong in the planning. Same goes for guys like Yang and Tilio. There's potential there, of course, But that's all it is right now. Potential. You can't bank on that in high stakes matches. You need proven quality. Players who can turn a game on its head, hold their nerve, and produce something special when it matters. Celtic at the moment don't have enough of those players. The truth is we can't keep hoping for miracles. We can't expect guys like Kyogo to come along out of nowhere every window. That sort of signing is rare, and even when you find one, you've got to replace him when he leaves. That hasn't happened, and we're already seeing the impact. Adamida, for example, hasn't convinced anyone that he's the long-term solution. He does some things well, holds the ball up, runs the channels, but he's not clinical. He's not a player who scares defenders, and in Europe you need someone who does. Now Rodgers has mentioned ambition more than once this summer, and it's becoming the buzzword that defines the mood around Celtic right now. Supporters aren't asking for superstars. We're not expecting the club to go out and sign players for £25 million. But when Rodgers talks about ambition, he's clearly hinting that the club needs to step things up. Stop shopping at the bargain end of the market and start acting like a Champions League level club. Because the longer we keep hovering in that middle ground, good enough for Scotland, not good enough for Europe, the more we risk falling behind. Ajax gave us a preview of what happens when you meet a team that has invested properly, that has a functioning youth system and a recruitment plan that actually identifies top-tier talent. They had pace, physicality, technical ability, and more importantly, depth. They had players who came off the bench and didn't look out of place. We had subs who came on and made things worse. That's the difference. That's the gap. The likes of Bernardo, Macau, and Ingles. These guys need minutes, but they also need support. You can't throw them into a struggling team and expect them to be the difference makers. Development is important, yes, but it can't come at the expense of competitiveness. We've seen Celtic drop out of the Champions League before and spend the rest of the season wondering what might have been. That can't happen again. And here's another thing. If you don't qualify for the Champions League, the financial hit is massive. We're not just talking about pride or prestige. We're talking about tens of millions of pounds. Lose that revenue once or twice and suddenly you're not building, you're scrambling just to keep pace. That's why investment now is so crucial. You spend money to make money. Qualify for the group stage, win a couple of games, and the return is huge. Fail and you're stuck playing catch-up again. You know what would change all that? A transfer window that actually started with urgency. Imagine that. The window opens, and within the first few days, Celtic have already signed 3 or 4 players who can walk into the starting 11. Not guys for 2 years down the line, not projects, players who raise the standard now. That's what fans are desperate for. And that's what we've never really had since Rodgers' first stint at the club. Every window since he came back has felt the same. Delay after delay, names floating around the rumor mill, and in the end 1 or 2 deals that feel like compromises rather than statements. Where's the intent? Where's the ruthlessness? Where's the planning? And let's not even get started on the winger situation. We've got 3 wingers at the moment, 3. And that's including guys like Young, who's still inconsistent, and Forrest, who's in his 30s. If one of them gets injured, we're suddenly looking at starting a Champions League match with a player who hasn't had a run of games in months. Tilio barely featured, and yet he's supposedly off to Rapid Vienna. If that deal goes through, we've got 2 wingers. That's not depth, that's negligence. Rodgers knows it. He said Yang's an important player, that he can't even entertain the idea of losing him right now. Not because Yang's undroppable, but because the squad is stretched so thin that even losing one rotational option would be a disaster. And to make matters worse, there's been whispers that Yang is unsettled, that he's looking at other options. Norwich City's name was thrown around. If that's true, and he goes, we're left with Forrest and Maeda. That's it. Let that sink in. And as if all that wasn't chaotic enough, we had the whole Yamada situation. Named on the bench, then not. Turns out he wasn't registered properly because of some UEFA regulation linked to the match being official for a preseason game in a random tournament. It's the kind of farce that makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes. Yamada needs minutes. He needs to be integrated. But instead, he's sitting in the stands because of a paperwork issue. So yeah, Saturday's game against Delali, it's our last preseason outing. And it's a chance for some of these guys to get a proper run out. Carter Vickers will probably start. Trusty might get minutes. Johnston too. But really, this should be a game where the fringe players take center stage. Bernardo, Macau, and Ingles, give them the platform. Same for Osman and Yamada. There's nothing on the line, no trophy. Just an opportunity to reset, get some rhythm, and maybe, give the coaching staff something to think about. Because as things stand, our starting 11 for the league opener is basically set by default. And that's a worrying sign. There's no competition for places, no pressure. That's not how a big club operates, and it all circles back to the same issue. Lack of urgency in the transfer market. If you want to avoid more nights like the one we just had against Ajax, the answer isn't hiding. It's right there. Sign players. Not just any players, the right players. Players who raise the standard, give you tactical options, and most importantly close the gap between Celtic and the teams we're trying to compete with. And this isn't just about Europe. The domestic season's about to kick off. St. Mirren won't be Ajax, sure, but we've seen Celtic drop points to lower table teams before when they've come in under-prepared. You can't sleepwalk through the first month of the season and then play catch-up. That's how titles are lost. So here we are again, one game left in preseason. One more chance to tweak, rotate, maybe see a few new faces, if we can get any in the door in time. But if the board doesn't act now, doesn't back Rodgers now, then we'll be having this exact same conversation again in September, only next time we'll be talking about a missed Champions League opportunity, points dropped in the league, and a window that didn't deliver, again, and honestly the fans deserve better. The players deserve better. Brendan Rodgers deserves better. It's time to show some ambition. Not in interviews, not in vague quotes, in action, on the pitch, in the market. That's what'll determine whether this season is one of progress, or yet another story of what could have been. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are growing louder across Glasgow's East End, and it's the kind of noise that gets Parkhead buzzing. Could Andrew Robertson, Scotland's captain, Champions League winner, and one of the most respected left-backs in world football, be plotting a sensational return home to join Celtic? While there's been no official word from Anfield or Lennox Town, several close to the situation suggest that talks might be underway behind closed doors. It's said that Robertson, now 31, is beginning to look toward the next chapter of his career, and what better way to close an incredible football journey than with the club he grew up supporting. Sources within Celtic Park have been coy, but hints have slipped through the cracks. It would be massive, transformative even, one unnamed club figure is believed to have said. But it's not impossible, with Brendan Rodgers looking to bolster his squad for another Champions League campaign. Adding a leader like Robertson wouldn't just lift the defense, it would lift the entire dressing room. There's also the personal factor. Robertson has never hidden his affection for the Hoops. He's spoken in past interviews of watching games at Celtic Park as a lad, dreaming of one day pulling on the famous green and white. And while his career has taken him to the highest heights in England and Europe, that deep connection to Glasgow never left him. It's understood that Liverpool would not stand in his way if a move suited both parties, with a contract entering its final stages, and Jurgen Klopp's departure ushering in a new era at Anfield. The timing could be right for a graceful goodbye. Of course, this is all in the realm of possibility. Nothing is signed, sealed, or even seriously confirmed. But as anyone in Scottish football knows, when a rumor like this starts to catch fire, it usually has at least a spark of truth behind it. Celtic fans are daring to dream. Could this be the summer Parkhead welcomes home a prodigal son? For now, it's just talk, but it's the kind of talk that makes you believe. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.